Let me tell you about the story of Grizelda and Dominic Hernandez. When 27-year-old Grizelda Hernandez contacted her baby's father for help to pay for childcare, this decision led her and Dominic to lose their lives in a brutally painful way. This was the man who didn't want anything to do with his child right from the beginning. However, it was her right to ask him for help. Dominic was his baby after all. This is the story of Grizelda and Dominic Hernandez. Grizelda Hernandez was born on the 16th of April 1990 in Laredo, Texas, to her parents Ramiro Hernandez and Mary Yolanda. Grizelda was the youngest of 4 children. She had 2 older brothers and 1 older sister. Grizelda was known to her family as Grey, and at the time of her murder, Grizelda was a 27-year-old single mother to 2 boys, Jaden and Dominic. Grizelda was a second-year full-time nursing student. Her oldest son, Jaden, was 6 years old when Dominic was born. Jaden was from a previous relationship. When Dominic was just 1 year old, Grizelda decided to contact Dominic's biological father for help. Grizelda had been trying to make ends meet, but it was becoming difficult when all her student loans went to paying for childcare. On the 9th of April 2018 at 11:10 a.m., Border Patrol Supervisor Ronald Anthony Burgos Avalos called for assistance while on duty. He had found a possible deceased victim face down in a pool of blood along a wooded deserted walking path where he was supervising at Father Magnabeau Park in the city of Laredo, Texas. Father Magnabeau Park was located along the border with Mexico. The body of the female victim was found close to Rio Grande, the river that divides Mexico and Texas. Border Patrol agents patrolling the area was met with a horrific scene. It was obvious to the agents present that this was no accidental death. The victim, what appears to be a female, lay on the walking path, face down in a pool of blood. But who was she though? Had she come from across the Mexican border? Little did the agents know at the time that the details of the crime that would unfold would be worse than they could ever have imagined. Once the deputies and EMS arrived, and the special investigating officers and the forensics team searched the area for clues, and soon the discovery of an abandoned baby stroller was found nearby. Further afield in the bushes, they found the body of an infant boy. The deceased infant was wearing a small green t-shirt with blue jeans and little brown boots. It was visible to the officers that his t-shirt and blue jeans were soaked in blood. From the clothes worn by the victims and the abandoned stroller found nearby, the officers already knew that these 2 people had not come from across the border in Mexico. Officers closed off the crime scene to preserve evidence, and after searching the surrounding areas, they noticed a white Mercedes parked nearby, at the entrance to the park. They ran the license plate number of the white Mercedes to see whether the vehicle could be linked to the identity of the young deceased female, and they found the registered owner to be Angelica Hernandez. When detectives called Angelica Hernandez, a frantic Angelica told them that she had lent her white Mercedes to her younger sister Grizelda that morning. Angelica told law enforcement officers that Grizelda had taken her baby son Dominic to meet with Dominic's biological father. He was a Border Patrol agent and his name was Anthony Burgos. Upon having this information, detectives immediately put out a call on the radio, alerting agents that the possible suspect was on scene. Ronald Anthony Burgos Avalos was a Border Patrol agent who had found the deceased victim. However, when he was approached by detectives to give his full name, he was initially reluctant to confirm his identity, only pointing to his name badge which said Ronald Burgos. The suspect they were looking for was Anthony Burgos. Upon further questioning, they asked him to show his ID, to which he denied having on him. However, when he was later detained and searched, Ronald Burgos did in fact have his ID. Within 1 hour of discovering the body, Ronald Anthony Burgos Avalos was detained as the only suspect. But who was Ronald Anthony Burgos Avalos? Ronald Anthony Burgos Avalos was a 28-year-old Border Patrol supervisor for Laredo, Texas. At the time of his arrest, he had been a veteran for 9 years with the U.S. Border Patrol. He was previously employed by the Navy before going on to work in law enforcement. He met and married his childhood sweetheart, and they had 2 young boys aged 10 and 3 years old. Burgos' wife also worked in law enforcement as a Border Patrol agent. Burgos and Grizelda met online in 2015. When the 2 met, Burgos had told Grizelda he and his wife had separated. However, this was not true. Burgos was still living with his wife and children. Grizelda and Burgos had a brief relationship, and when Grizelda fell pregnant with Dominic, Burgos didn't want anything to do with the baby. In fact, he told her to terminate the pregnancy. However, Grizelda wanted to keep the baby. She told him she would raise him alone, and the 2 broke off their relationship. Dominic Alexander Hernandez was born on the 26th of July 2016, a healthy baby boy who Grizelda and her family adored. When Dominic was 1 year old, Grizelda decided she wanted to go back to school. She wanted to better her life for her boys. She wanted to be a nurse like her older sister Angelica, and for the first year or so of Dominic's life, she coped. Her family helped as much as they could, sometimes helping with childcare and occasionally buying baby supplies for Dominic. Grizelda had used her student loans to pay for childcare for Dominic. She was soon struggling financially, as you do as a student with 2 children. That's when she considered asking Dominic's biological father for help to pay for childcare. So it was around November 2017 when Grizelda first considered filing papers for childcare support. Grizelda spoke to her best friend Adriana Flores, who encouraged her, and the two searched on social media to locate an address for Borges. During their search, they found out that Borges was still married and living nearby with his wife and 2 children. He was never separated, not what he had told Grizelda when they first met. After finding out his address, Grizelda and her best friend visited the area to make sure they had the correct address. They took photos from afar and saw his wife leaving the house. In January 2018, Grizelda contacted Borges to explain the situation. She told him she was thinking of filing papers for child support for Dominic. She needed help to pay for childcare. In March 2018, she nervously wrote practice messages before she finally decided the right words to use. She sent him a message saying, "So I don't even know how to tell you, but I'm honestly thinking of filing child support for Dominic. It has nothing to do with me being a pain or anything, but I just have no idea how I'm going to do it next semester. Money is tight as hell, even with me working, and I don't know how else to do it anymore. I can't anymore, really." Her message was sincere and honest. Grizelda went on to tell him it's not about revenge or hate, and it's not personal. She tells him she respects his decision about not wanting to be involved in Dominic's life. Borges responds by asking her how much money she wants. She tells him it's not up to her. It's in the hands of child support now. Grizelda tells him it was never about the money between them. She goes on to tell him that he can have whatever Dominic doesn't need, and she just wants to do right by Dominic and finish her studies. Borges sounds annoyed at first. However, they continue to exchange messages around March 2018, and Borges tells her he wants to tell her something, either in person or by telephone. He says, "But I'm sure in a few weeks I'm not going to be your friend." Grizelda asks why. He doesn't answer her. Now remember this, as this will come back later in the trial. Borges suggests they meet up, and he tells her to bring Dominic, and Grizelda never took him seriously at first, because he never wanted anything to do with Dominic. She even tells him she thought he was being sarcastic. This annoyed him, and he tells Grizelda, "Bring him if you want, I don't care." Grizelda apologizes and tells him she's happy he wants to meet Dominic, even if this may be the first and last time. At this point, Dominic was 16 months old, and the two had never met. Borges arranged to meet them both on the 25th of March at Winfield Park, and Borges had an appointment arranged for the paternity test on the 27th of March 2018. Grizelda had borrowed her sister Angelica's white Mercedes to meet with Borges. It was the afternoon, and upon meeting Borges, she had realized she had left Dominic's sippy cup in the car. Leaving Dominic briefly with his father, she returned to the car to retrieve the cup. What harm could happen? She trusted Borges. He worked in law enforcement. He was a border patrol agent. He was a father himself, and Dominic was his son. However, when Grizelda returned, Dominic was screaming and crying. When she asked what had happened, Borges told her he may have been bitten by a spider. Dominic had a red pinpoint mark on his left upper thigh. Grizelda left straight away with Dominic, apologizing to Borges that she had to cut short their meeting. She was disappointed the meeting hadn't gone well, so she later texted Borges to apologize. That evening, Grizelda took Dominic to the emergency room. His left foot, which had the suspected spider bite on the thigh, felt oddly cold compared to his other foot. Dominic was in a lot of pain, and the hospital treated it as an insect bite from the information that Grizelda had given them, and he was sent home with medication. However, the next few days, Dominic didn't get better. He was unable to walk on his injured leg. It was painful for him to sit on the area. Grizelda took him to the paediatrician several times, but there was still no improvement in his symptoms. During this time, Borges and Grizelda were in contact, and Borges would ask how the baby was. He never referred to Dominic by his name, and Borges did not attend his scheduled appointment for the paternity test on the 27th of March. 2 weeks after their first meeting, Grizelda told Borges she wanted to take Dominic back to the hospital. He wasn't getting any better, and she was so worried about Dominic that she had already taken him to see the paediatrician twice. However, Borges suggests they meet with him instead and bring Dominic to see him first before taking him back to the hospital. so another date was arranged for the 9th of April 2018. He asked Grizelda to bring Dominic to his place of work, which was Father Magnabow Park. The meeting was arranged early morning because he told Grizelda he was working later that morning. Grizelda was happy that Borges wanted to see Dominic again. She arranged with her sister Angelica to borrow her car again, and this time she asked to borrow a stroller for Dominic because since the first meeting Dominic struggled to walk properly. On the 9th of April 2018, Grizelda picked up some breakfast and dropped her sister off at work. As Angelica waved goodbye to her sister and nephew, she never imagined this would be the last time she would ever see them again. On the way to meet Borges, Grizelda did a detour to her best friend's house. Before leaving, she stood by the car and asked Adriana how she looked. Adriana told her she looked great and that she would see them later as they had arranged to meet that afternoon. Before leaving her friend, Grizelda stood by the car and said, "Wish me luck." Grizelda knew Father Magnabow Park well. She had taken Dominic there before. This is where it is believed that Borges' intentions were to lure Grizelda to the deserted walking trail among the wooded area where he knew the area well. He knew it would be quiet. He lay in wait, armed with a knife and ready. He ambushed her in a frenzied violent attack. He stabbed her continuously, but Grizelda put up a fight. She fought so hard to fight for her life, so hard to try to stay alive to protect her baby Dominic, that the struggle lasted 25 yards from where she had left the stroller. 25 yards was the distance between where her body was later found, in a pool of blood, where she had left the stroller where Dominic was sat. Grizelda was stabbed a total of 27 times. She had suffered multiple wounds to her hands and wrists where she tried to defend herself, and multiple stones to her head and a cluster of stones to her left side at the back of her neck. Baby Dominic was found a few feet away in the brush. His small body lay under a tree. His little green t-shirt and blue jeans were soaked in his own blood. The green Yoda t-shirt he was wearing was later examined and revealed that it had no cuts or tears. However, Dominic suffered one stab wound to his chest and a large cut to the left side of his neck. So why did Borges do this? Why did he end the lives of two innocent, beautiful people? Because he never wanted baby Dominic, never wanted anything to do with him, and never wanted to pay a penny for him, and hoped the problem would disappear. After his arrest at the police station, Borges initially denied knowing the victims. When he was asked to hand over his mobile phone, he refused. At this point, he was not under arrest. He was just assisting detectives. However, investigators knew they had the right man. Grizelda's sister Angelica had named him. Borges did eventually admit to detectives he knew the victim. However, he told them that he hadn't spoken to Grizelda in weeks and that they were on good terms. But there was too much evidence stacked against him. He had scratches up his arms and his hands were bruised. In a later search of his work truck, they found the two victims, Grizelda and Dominic's mobile phones, along with his belt keeper. Angelica later confirmed that her nephew, Dominic, had his own mobile phone, one that he would use to watch cartoons, and all three items were stained with droplets of blood. In Borges' work truck, investigators also found syringes and needles in his lunchbox that later matched the pinpoint hole found on Dominic's thigh, the same injury that Borges had previously claimed was caused by a spider bite. They also had video surveillance of Borges leaving work after the murders. The neighbour's camera showed he had arrived home to shower and change his clothes after the murders and leaving his house 10 minutes later to return to work, where shortly after he made the discovery of Grizelda's body along the walking trail. Justice for Grizelda and Dominic's family came 5 years later on July 2023. The prosecution asked for the death penalty. This is what Grizelda's family wanted, for the reasons this heinous crime was committed by the defendant in his uniform and at the defendant's place of work. Although the murder weapon was never found, the prosecution presented lots of evidence and experts to testify. The prosecution claimed that Borges did not want to pay for child support and planned to kill baby Dominic at their first meeting, injecting his thigh with an unknown substance, causing injury to his leg. Borges tried to rid the problem of paying child support that the intention to kill Dominic was already on his mind when Borges sent a message telling Grizelda, "But I'm sure in a few weeks I'm not going to be your friend." However, this plan wasn't successful. So he went on to arrange the second meeting where he decided to kill Grizelda and Dominic at his place of work and tried to blame it on someone who may have come from across the border in Mexico. The jury was shown video footage of Borges being held in the patrol car, licking his fingers and wiping the blood and scratches off his arm. After he was brought into the station, he is left alone for a while, and in the footage he can be seen whispering to himself and inspecting his arms, and again licking his hand and trying to rub something off his arm. Several of the officers on duty that day were brought in by the prosecution to testify about Borges's behaviour on the day. Agent Lara was first on scene when Borges claimed he found Grizelda. Recalling Borges's strange behaviour, he told the jury that after discovering Grizelda's body, Borges, who was his supervisor at the time, did not take charge of the situation as a supervisor should. Lara said he was the one who checked the victim for a pulse and radioed him for assistance. He said that Borges was acting super sketchy around the crime scene, such as moving the deceased body and rubbing his shoes across the dirt and disturbing the soil around the body, even picking up the victim's shoe and dropping it near the body. Lara testified that they all have the same training and know full well that you don't interfere with a crime scene.
Dragging his feet, dirt starts picking up a bit. So to me that was, of course, not procedure, not protocol. In fact, to me it was very strange that he was doing that.
Why? Why was it strange to you in that moment?
Because we were already told specifically not to tamper with the crime scene. We were told take a step back, treat it as a crime scene. And then being a supervisor and us being Border Patrol agents, we received training in crime scene management. So we kind of know what to do and what specifically what not to do. Being next to the victim, I check her. Mr. Bowden is standing over here I guess on the other side of her. I tell him she's 10-7 with me, she's dead. Radio everything in. I told base 2, I think she's dead. They tell me take a step back, treat it as a crime scene. So before anything, I told my training, go to the gate and open it for the paramedics. He takes off. So before I take a step back, I'm surprised to see so much blood. So I grab my head and I'm like, where is all this blood coming from? So at that moment, Mr. Burgos is like, cuts in front of me. He's like, let's find out. He grabs her from the bicep area, grabs her from the hip area, picks her up, looks at her, puts her back down. He does that, and my eyes were wide open. I was like, what is going on? And I take a step back. At the time he picks her up, I could see the shadow of her face. It's full of dirt. I could see her hair over her face, but I do not get a clear picture of her. But I am so freaking out and in shock because I don't know what I'm looking at. So he puts her back down, goes back over her. He's like, you know what? This stuff makes me nervous. I'm gonna go back down this way, and he points south again towards the Bettis property. And he walks away, and I see him with his phone in his hand. He's doing something.
Officer Cortez testified that he was called to investigate the crime scene, and it was another agent who discovered baby Dominic's body in the brush area. He described how Dominic's body was found on the grassy area, wearing blood-soaked jeans with little brown booties and a t-shirt.
You also testified that he said that there was a body.
That is correct.
Okay. What happens at that point? Or what do you do at that point?
At that point, he was ahead of me, southbound. When I heard him say, I found another body, I walked towards his direction, to his location. He was no longer on the dirt path. He was in the brush. And when I arrived there at the brush with Agent Dennison, I observed a motionless little boy as well.
Describe, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you saw, or when you saw the little boy. If you can describe what you saw.
Of course. Little brown booties, little brown boy booties, blue jeans that were covered in blood, freshly haircut, and what caught more of my attention was the way the body was positioned, he was placed. He wasn't thrown, he was placed. It's as if someone had placed him down.
Did you see any injuries to the baby?
Yes, lots of blood around the neck area, and that came down. I said again, blood on the blue jeans as well.
Okay.
Lead Detective Garcia presented digital evidence. There was evidence Borges and Grizelda had weeks of communication before the murders via text messages and phone calls, and that Borges had deleted all messages between him and Grizelda, showing that there was premeditation for the murders. The prosecution said Borges switched from using Facebook to using Snapchat to send messages, because messages in Snapchat disappears afterwards. However, on Grizelda's phone, they had managed to find photo screenshots of their conversations, which showed Grizelda had not trusted Borges. The medical examiner, Dr. Stern, testified that along with the 27 wounds, Grizelda also suffered blunt force trauma to her head, which Dr. Stern said was possibly caused by a sharp object, such as a knife, or either her head being forcibly slammed against a hard surface. Dominic's autopsy showed that he had 2 wounds, one to the chest and one to his neck. The fatal laceration to his neck sliced his carotid artery in 2. Both Grizelda and Dominic had injuries to the left side of the neck, which showed the killer was aiming for the jugular vein and the carotid artery. Dr. Stern told the jury how she had examined Dominic's leg injury, and she claimed that she was 100% sure, in her opinion, that the puncture wound was caused by an 18-gauge syringe needle, exactly the same size syringe and needles found in Borges' work truck. Dr. Stern went on to tell the jury that a spider bite would have shown up as 2 pinpoint marks due to the fangs that a spider has, and that the injury on Dominic's thigh only had 1 puncture wound. Unfortunately, Dr. Stern said, not knowing what poison to test for on the tissue sample taken from Dominic's leg, there was no way of determining what substance could have been injected. A forensic scientist, Dr. Morales, came on to testify that the blood found on the stroller straps tested positive as Grizelda's blood. It was determined that after Borges killed Grizelda, he walked back 25 yards from where the fight ended to where Dominic was in the stroller, and unbuckled the stroller belt with his bloody hands, transferring Grizelda's blood from his hands onto the stroller buckles. The prosecution claimed that Borges carried Dominic over to the brush area, where he laid Dominic down on the grass and lifted his t-shirt and stabbed him in the chest. This is why there was no cuts or tears found on Dominic's t-shirt. However, it is believed that when the wound to the chest did not kill Dominic, that's when Borges went for Dominic's neck, aiming for the jugular vein and the carotid artery. Dr. Morales also testified that by comparing both DNA analysis between Borges and Dominic, the results showed greater than 99.9% Borges was Dominic's biological father. Morales told the jury that transfer blood linked Borges to the crime scene. Dominic's blood was also found on Borges' tailgate. Several family members were called to testify. Mary, Grizelda's mother, tearfully told the jury that Dominic was walking by himself before meeting Borges, but after their first meeting, Dominic couldn't walk anymore and he couldn't sit on his injured thigh.
This was at my house, Gray's room. We tried to make him more comfortable.
When Angelica, Grizelda's older sister, testified, she told the jury that Grizelda told her Anthony Borges did not want the baby and had wanted her to have an abortion. She said the morning of the murder she had blew Dominic a kiss and told him she loved him, and that was the last time she saw him. District Attorney Isidro Alanis, his closing statements were very powerful. He paused several times to let the jury take in every detail of the planned attack. He reminded the jury that Ronald Anthony Borges Avalos did not deserve to be put to death, telling the jury he earned it when he committed the murders on the 9th of April 2018. Using his fists, Alanis demonstrated to the jury how many times Grizelda and Dominic were stabbed.
It wasn't swift. It wasn't swift. It wasn't pulling the trigger. One time. This was up close. This was personal. 27. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. 27 times. And then once through the baby's chest. And then one through his neck. Unforgivable. Unforgivable.
Photos of the crime scene were shown to the jury, along with plastic bags containing clumps of Grizelda's hair, which was collected from the crime scene. Grizelda's hair that had been cut off during the attack. Dominic's little green Yoda t-shirt that was soaked in blood was also shown to the jury. District Attorney Grizelda Hernandez reminded the jury that Grizelda put up a fight, such a fight that her shoes were kicked off in the process, and that Dominic marked his father's truck with his own blood. On the 6th of July 2023, the jury found Ronald Anthony Burgos Avalos guilty on 2 counts of murder, and on the 18th of July 2023, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. A month after his conviction in August 2023, Burgos filed to appeal his sentence. District Attorney Hernandez at the time said, "If a new trial is granted, all options are back on the table, including the death penalty." Since Grizelda and Dominic's murders, Grizelda's oldest son is being raised by his grandmother. A memorial site has been set up at Father Magnabo Park. Grizelda's father has visited the site every Sunday for the last 5 years. Mary, her mother, says that Grizelda was a strong person. She was such a character. Gray, as she was known to her family, loved to joke around and tease her. She said Gray would get on her nerves, and how she wished she was around now to do that. Grizelda had aspirations to better her life for her 2 boys. Her sister Angelica said Grizelda wanted to become a nurse and leave Laredo. Dominic was born a big healthy baby. She said he was such a good baby and didn't cry much. And her best friend Adriana remembers her as energetic. She says Grizelda always had a smile and was willing to help others. If you found this video interesting, please like and subscribe and share. Thank you for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.